Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on what your World of Warcraft race says about you. Human. You picked human, the first option on the list. The race sitting in the top left corner of the character creation screen since 2004, staring at you like a factory default setting. Congratulations on your selection. There are exactly two types of human players. The first opened World of Warcraft for the very first time, saw the word human, recognized it, and clicked confirm. The second spent an afternoon on the forums establishing that every man for himself, a free P trinket on a 2-minute cooldown, was worth an entire gear slot in rated arena. These two people share nothing in common. They made the identical choice. Every man for himself kept humans mandatory in competitive PvP for years and generated an extraordinary volume of balanced complaints. The human spirit provides bonus versatility. Diplomacy accelerates reputation gains. None of that applies to the first guy. He just knew the word. Next up is the orc. The orc is the cover race. Literally, the original World of Warcraft box art features an orc charging towards you with complete conviction, and that energy has never left. This is the face of the Horde. Thrall built it. Saurfang died for it. Garrosh ruined it, depending on who you ask, and you have an opinion about that. Hardiness reduces stun duration by 25%, which made orc warriors and rogues functionally insufferable to fight in vanilla PvP. Blood Fury provides a significant attack power and spell power burst on a cooldown. Command increases pet damage, which, combined with Blood Fury, made Orc Hunter statistically optimal for a considerable portion of this game's lifespan. The math was not subtle about it. The Orc player is serious, no frills, picked the race that looks exactly like what the game is about, and has been playing it the same way since 2004. Probably a warrior, hunter, or death knight. Definitely has feelings about warlords of Draenor. Moving on to the dwarf is chronically underplayed, chronically underestimated, and chronically correct, while everyone else was rolling human or night elf. You opened the character creation screen, scrolled down, and made a decision that has aged extremely well. Stoneform removes poison, disease, and bleed effects while granting a bonus armor increase, which counters a genuinely surprising number of dangerous mechanics in both PvP and PvE. In vanilla, dwarf priests had access to Fear Ward, a unique racial spell that prevented fear on a single target. Magmadar, the second boss of Molten Core, feared the entire raid on a regular basis. Dwarf priests were not optional. Raid leaders knew this. The dwarf player absolutely knew this and said nothing. Dwarf Hunter also had gun specialization and a rifle sound effect that was frankly deeply satisfying. This mattered to the people it mattered to. The dwarf player does not need validation, has not needed it since 2004, is playing a hunter in Ironforge right now, completely unbothered, and has been quietly right about this the entire time. Next up is the undead. You looked at the character creation screen, you saw the human, the orc, the dwarf, the tauren, and you chose the decomposing corpse with the glowing eyes. This is information about you, and we are going to sit with it for a moment. The Forsaken are former humans raised by Arthas, and later freed from the Lich King's control under Sylvanas Windrunner. They moved into the sewers beneath the ruins of Lord Aeron and called it a capital city. Cannibalize allows them to regenerate health by eating humanoid and undead corpses on the battlefield. Blizzard put this in the game and called it a racial ability. But don't worry, it gets worse. Will of the Forsaken broke charm, fear, and sleep effects on a short cooldown, which meant it invalidated entire talent specializations that enemy players had built their characters around. Undead rogues and warlocks were PvP fixtures for years, specifically because of it. The complaints were extensive and largely correct. There are two undead players, the one who was 14 years old and thought this was the coolest thing they had ever seen, and the PvP player who needed Will of the Forsaken. Notably, these are very often the same person. Moving on to the Night Elf. The Night Elf is what happens when a game tries to appeal to absolutely everyone simultaneously and succeeds completely. Ancient, mysterious, aesthetically striking, mechanically useful, and home to one of the most famous animations in the history of the medium. The female Night Elf slash dance is based on Britney Spears' choreography. This is a real fact about a fantasy video game that has existed since 2004 and nobody has ever fully processed it. Shadow Meld allows night elves to enter stealth while stationary, drop out of active combat, reset encounters, and set up ability openers. It is the most tactically versatile racial in vanilla by a considerable margin, usable to drop threat mid-raid, escape dangerous situations, and make rogues deeply annoying in PvP. Quickness provides a passive 2% dodge. Wisp Spirit increases ghost movement speed by 50%, which is relevant every time you do something catastrophic. Night Elf Druid was the Alliance Druid. Malfurion Storm Rage and Tyrande Whisperwind are its lore figureheads. Darkshore and Ashenvale are where a significant portion of the player base spent their formative WoW hours. There are 3 Night Elf players: the one who picked it because it looked incredible, the Druid main, and the person who read about Shadow Meld and immediately understood its applications. The population data suggests all 3 groups are enormous. Next up is the Tauren. You looked at the Horde roster: orcs, undead, trolls, and you chose the giant, gentle cow people who live on a mesa and practice spiritual communion with the earth. This was the correct decision, and you should feel good about it. War Stomp stuns up to 5 nearby enemies, giving every single Tauren class access to an AoE stun, regardless of spec or talent build. Endurance provides bonus base health, which was meaningfully significant in vanilla, where health pools were small enough for flat bonuses to matter. Cultivation accelerates herbalism. Thunder Bluff is one of the most visually distinct capital cities in the game, a series of elevated mesa platforms connected by rope bridges, which sounds chaotic and works completely. Tauren were the Horde's only druid option until Cataclysm, which meant every Horde druid for 6 years was a giant cow by requirement, and based on available evidence, did not mind. Cairn Bloodhoof is one of WoW's most genuinely respected lore figures. His death in Cataclysm, poisoned by Magatha Grim Totem during a Mak Gora duel with Garrosh, remains one of the more quietly devastating moments in the game's story. The Tauren player has feelings about this. They have had feelings about this for 15 years. You chose to play a peaceful giant in a war game and then healed your entire raid. Moving on to the gnome. Gnomes are one of the least played races in World of Warcraft by population, despite being, on paper, genuinely good. This is not a coincidence. This is a choice the player base made collectively and has been making continuously for 20 years. Scape Artist breaks immobilize and movement speed reduction, effects on a short cooldown, which in PvP is a high value ability that invalidates entire kiting strategies. Expansive Mind increases intellect and mana. These are real, functional racials that reward people who use them. The people who use them are a small and very specific group. Gnome Regan, their capital city, was irradiated during an attempt to reclaim it from Trogs. Mekinir Thermaplug, their own people, intentionally released the radiation. They lost their home city to an inside job and then set up operations in a corner of Ironforge. The High Tinker Gelbin Mektork has been leading a dispossessed civilization out of a borrowed hallway for 2 decades. This is presented as a minor background detail. The gnome player looked at every option on the character creation screen and selected the smallest, most technically minded, least intimidating available choice. They are probably a mage or warlock who correctly identified escape artist's value. They are definitely underestimated. They have been winning arguments about this race since Cataclysm removed engineering specialization, and they still didn't leave. Next up is the troll. The troll player did not browse the character creation screen. They opened a spreadsheet. They arrived at a conclusion. They made a character. Berserking increases attack speed and casting speed, originally scaling with missing health in vanilla and Burning Crusade before being reworked into a flat haste percentage. It has been one of the top tier DPS racials for the majority of this game's lifespan, making Troll the statistically optimal choice for a significant number of damage dealing specs across multiple expansions. Beast Slaying provides bonus damage against beasts. Regeneration accelerates passive health recovery. Dea Voodoo Shuffle reduces the duration of movement impairing effects, added in later patches for players who wanted a second reason beyond the one they already had. Despite holding the best DPS racial in the game for extended periods, Troll has never ranked among the most popular races by population. This is because most people are not running simulations before they make a video game character. The Troll player is. Vol'jin led the Darkspear Trolls, allied with Thrall's horde against considerable historical odds, became the first non-orc war chief in the faction's history, and was killed by an anonymous demon in the opening hour of Legion. The troll player has documented opinions about this and will share them with minimal prompting. Nobody in your guild asked why you picked troll. They already know. Moving on to the Draenei are, by any reasonable measure, the most historically burdened race in World of Warcraft. A faction of Eridar refused to join Sargeras and the Burning Legion, fled their home world under the leadership of the prophet Velen, and spent 25,000 years jumping between planets while a demonic army hunted them across the cosmos. They eventually crashed their dimensional spaceship into a small island off the coast of Kalimdor. They named the island Azure Mist. They immediately started helping the local wildlife. Heroic Presence provided a passive 1% hit rating to all nearby party members in Burning Crusade, at a time when hit rating was a hard cap requirement for raiders, and gear stat budgets were tight enough that 1% represented a meaningful allocation. Raid leaders understood this immediately. Certain players received a guild invitation and a class assignment in the same conversation. Gift of the Naru is a scaling heal usable on yourself or allies. Draenei also broke the Horde's Shaman exclusivity, bringing the class to the Alliance for the first time. There are two Draenei players. The one who read every single quest text in Azure Mist Isle, absorbed the full scope of their 25,000-year exile, and felt something, and the one whose raid leader said the word heroic presence and pointed at the character creation screen. Very few people exist between these two extremes. Moving on to the Blood Elf. The Blood Elf is the most played race in World of Warcraft, has been for extended periods, will probably continue to be. The female Blood Elf was the single most popular character model in the game for years, which is a statistic that surprises nobody who has ever looked at a server population breakdown. Arcane Torrent silences all nearby enemies within an 8-yard radius, and simultaneously restores a class resource. A silence is one of the most valuable abilities in PvP, interrupting spells, stopping healers, and creating windows that win fights outright. The fact that it also refunds resources is almost impolite. Arcane Acuity provides a critical strike bonus. Magic resistance reduces spell damage taken. These are all fine. Arcane Torrent is doing the work. Blood Elves brought paladins to the Horde for the first time in Burning Crusade, which caused a measurable population event. Their lore involves the destruction of the Sunwell by Arthas, a civilization-wide arcane addiction, draining power from a captured Naru to survive, an eventual redemption when Velen restored the Sunwell with the essence of Murut in patch 2.4. Lorthimar Theron has been quietly leading them through all of it. Kael'thas betrayed everyone and had to be killed twice. There are two Blood Elf players, the one who wanted to play the race that looks like the protagonist of a different, more cinematic fantasy game, and the one who wanted a Horde paladin and had no other option. Both are correct. So did approximately 40% of your server. Moving on to the Worgen, you were offered humans, dwarves, gnomes, night elves, and Draenei. You chose the werewolf. This requires no further justification, and you have never offered one. The Gilneas starting zone is one of the most critically praised in the game, a Victorian Gothic city sealed off from the world by a wall its king built specifically to keep everyone else out, which is the kind of isolationist policy that sounds reasonable until the curse of the Worgen gets in anyway. Gen Greymane constructed an entire physical barrier around his nation, watched it fail to stop a supernatural plague, lost his son, and emerged from it as one of the most personally motivated characters in the Alliance roster. The questline is tightly paced, aesthetically distinct, and genuinely upsetting in places. Most people played through it once and then made a Blood Elf. Running Wild replaces the mount system entirely. Worgen do not ride animals. Worgen become the mount. They drop to all fours and sprint. This was an intentional design decision that has been consistently popular because of course it has. Darkflight provides a 40% movement speed increase for 10 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. Viciousness adds a 2% critical strike bonus. Aberration reduces curse and disease durations. Worgen also toggle between human and Worgen form cosmetically, which means you selected a race that is secretly two races, uses itself as transportation, and has a starting zone that functions as a better introduction to the game than the actual tutorial. You want it to be a werewolf. Next up is the Goblin. The Goblin starting zone opens on a yacht party and ends with a volcanic eruption, a corporate betrayal, a shipwreck, and a giant turtle. This is the introduction Blizzard designed to explain who goblins are as a people. It is completely accurate Time is Money provides a passive 1% haste bonus that applies equally to every spec and every class in the game, making it one of the most universally valuable racial passives available. Haste affects cast times, attack speeds, resource generation, and cooldown modifying effects across virtually every build in every role. The Goblin player either knows this or arrived here for entirely different reasons. Both outcomes are valid. Rocket Jump propels you 20 yards forward on an arc, sharing a cooldown with Rocket Barrage, which deals fire damage to a target. The mobility applications are genuine, gap closing, escaping, and reaching terrain that was not designed to be reachable. That last use case is the one the Goblin player discovered first. Best Deals Anywhere provides maximum vendor discounts regardless of reputation standing. Pack Hobgoblin summons a personal bank assistant named Gobber on a 30-minute cooldown. Trade Prince Gallywix sold his own people into slavery during the Kizen evacuation and was later appointed to a senior horde position. This is presented as a manageable situation. The Goblin player knew exactly what they were selecting. They wanted the race defined by capitalism, explosions, and a flexible moral framework, and they wanted Rocket Jump specifically. They have used it to reach somewhere they absolutely should not be, multiple times. Next up is the Pandaren. When Mists of Pandaria was announced, the internet collectively decided it was going to be terrible. Kung Fu Pandas. Clearly a joke, obviously beneath the franchise. The expansion released and was quietly one of the better ones. The Pandaren player remembers this and brings it up at appropriate intervals. The Pandaren are the first and only neutral race in World of Warcraft. They do not choose alliance or horde at character creation. They play through the Wandering Isle, a shared starting experience set on the back of an ancient giant turtle named Shenzin Su. Learn the philosophical divide between the disciplined Tushui and the action-oriented Huojin, and choose their faction at the end. This is the most thoughtful onboarding structure in the game. The turtle gets sick partway through and you have to heal it. Epicurean doubles the stat bonuses from food buffs, meaning well-fed effects provide twice the secondary stats of any other race. In progression rating environments where consumable optimization is standard practice, this is a legitimate throughput advantage. Inner Peace doubles rested experience accumulation, making Pandaren the fastest leveling race in the game by a measurable margin. Bouncy prevents fall damage under most circumstances. Quaking Palm incapacitates a target for 4 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. Chen Stormstout, a Pandaren brewmaster, appeared in Warcraft 3 as a mercenary character years before his people became playable. Monks were introduced alongside Pandaren in Mists, with Pandaren as the only available monk race at launch, which meant every monk main spent their first several levels on a turtle. There are 4 Pandaren players: the one who loved the expansion and read every quest text, the monk main who had no other option, the efficient leveler who calculated Inner Peace's value and acted on it, and the one who just wanted to be a panda and has no further explanation. All 4 made the right call. In conclusion, your character creation screen says more about you than you intended to share, and you should absolutely play World of Warcraft. If you enjoyed this PowerPoint presentation, I made others, and you should absolutely check them out. Peace on planet Earth.